Hey everyone, Coach Mark here. Before I dive into today's topic, make sure to find me over on Instagram, Coach Mark Esrubio. I offer one-to-one coaching. It's what I do full-time and the odds are very good. I'd love to work with you. With that being said, let's get into it. In today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about skill versus strength programming and why simply adding weight week in, week out is not the most effective path in terms of maximizing your strongman performance or getting stronger in general. I want to talk a little bit about how I'm defining strength and skill, at least in the context of this video. A good way of looking at it is just how strength is your ability to move a maximal load, whereas skill is your ability to move that load efficiently. For example, we all probably know that one guy, he can just keep piling weight on the bar when he's lifting and just get stronger and stronger, but every rep is fairly inconsistent and they're kind of hard to watch sometimes. They often wound up getting hurt. Conversely, you also have those lifters where every rep is crisp, clean, efficient, just a technical showcase, but then if you add 5 pounds to the bar, all of a sudden they fall apart. A good example of this would be to take someone who is an incredibly strong bench presser and overhead presser, for example, someone who's been doing bodybuilding a long time, more of a powerlifting sort, or strength lifting, where they're doing a lot of static pressing, throw them onto a log clean and press, and they'll often have a hard time getting it all together. And it's not due to lacking strength. They're incredibly strong statically, but what they're lacking is the skill element to move the log efficiently in such a way that they can maximize the strength they currently have. Now, for the purpose of this video, I am going to be using the log clean and press as our reference point lift. Now, the reason I'm using the log clean and press is this is a marquee event for strongman. I know even for myself, first time I saw the log clean and press, that was the lift that made me go, I think I want to try out strongman. What a cool looking lift. And when it comes to the log clean and press, there are two main areas that you see people tend to falter. The first one is on the clean itself. The lifters will often lose the log, it's improperly placed against the body, or the clean itself is just very sloppy, it results in wasted energy. They're trying to do like a jumping barbell clean with it rather than rolling it correctly. There's just a few technical errors wherein they're putting in excessive work and burning themselves out before they move into the second part of the lift. Now, the second area that lifters will often have a lot of trouble with their log clean and press is on the rack and dip drive mechanics. I lump these two together because usually if you have a bad rack position, it's because your dip and drive mechanics are a little bit off. You'll often see something such as the log is set too low on the chest, or when they go to bend their knees for the dip drive, the knees are shooting way too forward, they're collapsing underneath it. It's just a very soft position. So then that log gets down and away from them rather than going up and back, making for very inefficient power transfer. Now that we've identified these two common problem areas on a person's log clean and press, let's look at a training cycle that helps address both of these issues concurrently. Now what you're seeing on screen is a hypothetical 4-day program for our lifter. It'll be consisting of three 3-week waves, so it's 9 weeks total. Let's go over each day. In day 1, we're going to do the log clean and press on a 3-week wave, where week 1 is 12 triples, then 10 triples, then 8 triples, a little heavier each week. And what you're going to do is each 3-week wave, we're going to implement a portion of a triphasic approach. So what that means is for the first 3 weeks, we're going to use an exaggerated eccentric on the dip and drive. So you might do a 3 count going down to the bottom of your push for your push press, then reverse, kick it back up. Then the next 3 weeks, you would do a paused dip in the push press. So you dip down, hold the very bottom for a 2 count, and then go into your push press. And then for the final 3-week wave, we'd be doing reactive reps. So you'd come down, do the rep, and you just try to cycle through them, essentially cycling them together, chaining them in such a way that there's no distinct break between individual repetitions. Because what that does is that trains us first on how to control the eccentric phase in our dip so then our rack position doesn't collapse. Then it trains us how to hold the bottom position of our rack with the dip drive. That way we have a good strong reversal. And then lastly, we have the reactive reps, which just help us maintain the rack position across the repetitions. Then after that, we're picking a dumbbell Larson press, and the reason why for this variation is by having your feet up, you can't arch your back too much, so you're going to have to really focus on getting that upper back mobility, that T-spine mobility, which again will help with your rack position, and coupled with the triphasic approach helping your dip drive mechanics, we can see how this pairing helps with one segment of improving our log press. Then we move on to some pull-ups, some face pulls, and triceps. After that, let's talk about our next day of training here. And what we're going to do is 3 weeks of 1.5 rep front squats, 3 weeks of pause squats, and then 3 weeks of front squats with chains hanging off the bar. And much like we did with the dip drive mechanics here, what we're doing with the front squat is doing the 1.5 reps first. That helps us learn how to control our eccentric as well as that reversal strength. Then we move into a pause thing just to help strengthen the bottom portion of the front squat and the accompanying leg drive coming back up, you're not going to have as much of a stretch reflex as a result of that. And then lastly, we move into a chain front squat. And the reason I like the chain front squat here is as you go up, it continues to get heavier. So it's going to really hit the upper back and quadriceps in a way that is conducive to the log, especially if you're using straps on the front squat. That helps emulate the rack position for the log. So there's going to be a ton of transference here. Then after that, we pick something like a snatch grip RDL, some barbell rows, leg press, and side bends. Ultimately, the front squat wave here is what's going to be improving the log, whereas the secondary movements are more towards keeping the deadlift alive. Again, it varies from lifter to lifter. This is just a good generic template that we're talking about right now. Our third day, we're going to do 3-week waves of a log complex. For the first 3 weeks, we're going to do 2 log front squats, 2 log viper presses, and then 2 push presses. And quick note on the log front squat, it's not up here in the rack position. It's actually being held against your sternum as you come out of the sit phase on the log. So you could almost argue it's more like a log Zercher squat. So then what you'll do is for the first 3 weeks, you're going to go 2, 2, 2. So 2 log front squat, 2 viper press, 2 push press, work up to the heaviest one you can. Then for the next 3 weeks, you're going to go 1 log front squat, 1 viper press, 2 push press. Then for the third 3-week wave, so this is week 7 through 9, you're going to do 1 log front squat and then 2 push press thereafter. Then we move into an SU press, which is a seated unsupported press. So you're just sitting on a bench or a box doing an overhead press variation. It could be with any bar of your choosing or dumbbells. Now the reason we're picking this variation here is much like our dumbbell Larson, this is going to help us press without creating a ton of lumbar arch. We're instead focusing on T-spine extension. So that helps us get a good, powerful rack position without just arching the hell out of our low back and creating excess fatigue. Then after that, some behind the neck pull downs just because I really like those. I think they're great exercise for stretching out in general. Some glute raises and triceps. Now our fourth day here is kind of a catch-all day. We're just going to do some speed work on the deadlift or maybe some sort of developmental wave. Maybe we save that for a different video. We'll talk about that later. And then either a squat or some single leg work, some sandbag work of your choosing, the glute ham raise, and the ab wheel. Very simple training day here, as again, this entire program is about improving your log. Let's dive a bit further into the rationale behind everything here. First off, let's talk about the first day with the log developmental approach. We have those 3 weeks of exaggerated eccentrics, that's the lowering phase into the dip drive. Then we have the 3 weeks where we're pausing at the bottom, and then 3 weeks where we're doing the reactive reps. The idea here is by first taking the first 3 weeks, we just learn how to control our dip mechanics there. So we're learning how to maintain our rack position as we come down with the log. If you're weak in a position, you need to spend more time in that position to get strong at it. Then after that, we're learning how to control the bottom phase of our dip and hold that position. That way we're not falling forward. And then after we've mastered both the down phase and the hold phase, we can start really getting spicy and using the stress shortening cycle with reactive reps where we're kind of bouncing from one rep to the other. Whereas if you just start out trying to do reactive reps, those reps are going to be all over the place. They're very sloppy because your skill element is so low, you're not able to properly exploit your strength development. Additionally, by doing something such as 12 sets of 3 instead of 6 sets of 6, you're going to get more first reps across a total workout. That gives us more opportunity to practice our clean mechanics as well as our setup and just learning how the log moves as we get it into the rack position. So the next up is our intensive approach on the log. This is our second heavier day of the week. And what we're doing here is by using that log complex, we're building different attributes of the log across these 9 total weeks. In phase 1, we're really teaching you how to balance speed and aggression alongside positioning and technique with your clean mechanics. Again, a lot of people tend to rush their clean or they're just not positioned correctly. So by focusing on having those 2 log front / Zercher squats coming out of the hole, you learn how to keep the log in close and then turn into the clean with the viper press thereafter. Then in the second phase, as we've cleaned up your clean, we can reduce the volume a little bit so we can put a little bit more emphasis on overload and dialing in the push press. And then the third and final phase, by now your clean mechanics are probably really smooth, so we continue to put an even greater emphasis on the dip drive and the push pressing itself. Now with respect to the front squat approach, as I talked about here, we want to be using straps on the bar because that helps more closely emulate the rack position that you're going to see on the log. And because the log's rack position tends to be so difficult for most of us, we get a lot more carryover. Additionally, the 3 variation approach where we start with the 1.5 reps, then we move into the pause reps, and then versus chains, it's somewhat side by side with what we're doing on the developmental phase for the log in that the 1.5 reps, They're both a reactive approach, but they also teach us how to control the eccentric because you learn where your bounce point is. Then by training the pause thereafter, we're just strengthening the bottom position, and again coincides with our pause dip on the push press. And then lastly, instead of using a reactive style front squat, because the front squat does have an inherent bounce to it, we're going to be using chains just to help really hammer the upper back and quadriceps to get that big overload, to get that strong push to help you get that log moving off your chest to a powerful lockout. Now, as far as accessory selection goes here, I opted for movements that help with opening up the chest, increasing upper back strength, and getting an improved range of motion in the T-spine. And the reason why is stuff like the behind the neck lat pull down or the face pull, that just helps us get our shoulders back. It opens up the chest so we're not so hunched over. And then also helps strengthen the upper back, which a strong upper back helps everything in strongman, but especially on the log, you need that to help stabilize the log in the rack position, as well as hold it as you move into the dip drive and push press side of things. And then we opted for movements such as an SU press, that's a seated unsupported overhead press, as well as Larson presses. And the reason why is they force us to learn how to arch using more of our upper and mid back as opposed to our low back, because we do want extension, we do want layback in a log press, but we don't want it all coming from the low back, because when it's pure low back to create that layback, all that's happening is we're getting the log in a really bad position in terms of center of gravity, which often results in a weakened leg drive mechanics, as well as generating a ton of fatigue in the low back. And if you've got a 5-event show and there's a max deadlift later after log for reps, the last thing you want to do is cook your low back on the log. Now, another area that I think skill work development cycles really shine is on event work, as one of the things they can let us do is start off a bit easy and build momentum and confidence as we slowly ramp up intensity. So for example, I'm talking about a power lifter switching over to strongman. Power lifters are strong, but they don't have skill with the movement, so what they need is practice. And what you'll see on screen right now, this is a perfect example of how we might apply that principle with someone on a sandbag load, where for the first week, what we're doing is 2 rows, 2 to the lap, and then 1 roll up. And a roll up is just pretty much the whole lift, except instead of putting it onto a bar or over a platform, you just drop it on the ground. Because when someone first starts doing loading events, they often have a hard time just getting the implement off the ground. They don't know what the positioning looks like. So we're going to spend the first few weeks doing extra rows and lapping just to help them get used to that. And then as you see with the weeks progressing, we move to the actual full movement, because now we've addressed the individual positions to help make them stronger. Also, if you are bridging over from powerlifting to strongman, work your upper back. A strong upper back really helps with the picking of implements for loading events. It also helps with moving events. Train your upper back. Now, what I've got on screen here is a bit of a dissection of a standing strict press and different means and methods we can use to improve it. So for example, let's say you just have a weak starting initial phase. Think about something such as a steep incline press or a Z press, and those are going to be your strength developers. Whereas your skill developer might be doing something such as cluster signals, where you do a rep, re-rack it, so you have to do the reset, because the better you get at setting your starting position, the better your starts are going to be, and then you use those accessory movement variations there to improve your overall strength itself, right? We're getting that strength and skill side of things. And if you fade at the nose with your overhead press, you want to think a lot of external rotation work for your strength element, whereas your skill element might be something such as a paused rep at the nose where you then finish the rep, or even a 1.5 rep to the nose and then all the way up. Forehead, BTN press and pin press for your strength side. And then for skill side, you might do paused reps at the forehead or 1.5 reps to the forehead. And then if you're at the end of your range of motion, your strength side of things, you're going to look at push press, pin press, or a close grip incline press. Also general upper back work, because that's going to help with your shoulder stability. Or you might even do a hanging band press, where you take something, not a ton of weight, maybe even just 10-pound kettlebells hanging off bands, and create that little bit of oscillation as you approach lockout. That'll help you develop the skill of stability in your upper back to maintain the position so you can get a good, strong lockout with those heavy weights. So just wrapping up here, you want to think of strength as your ability to move a maximal load, and skill is your ability to move a load efficiently. You want to combine the best of both worlds, as that's how you're going to really win this thing in terms of your overall performance. If you're able to add weight, but every rep is inconsistent, they're kind of scary to look at, the odds are good you have a very high strength element, but a very low skill element. Whereas every rep is crisp, perfect, but if you add 5 pounds, it may as well be stapled to the floor. Well, that is low strength, high skill. But if you're able to consistently add weight, and all that really happens is the rep slows down a little bit and there aren't any drastic form changes, that's a good tell that both the skill side and strength side are very high, and you're primed in a position where you can perform at a high level, but you can also train at a high level. Because if you have high skill, every rep will take less out of you because you're more efficient with every rep. So that enables us to use higher training volumes, higher training frequency, or overall higher training intensity, depending on what sort of block you're in and what you're trying to develop. Regardless, combining strength and skill is your best path forward. If you'd like to see me expand a bit more on this and maybe do a series on programming it with the deadlift or any other movement that you deem worth the time for me to talk about, let's get this video some likes, give me some shares and some subscribes, and I'll do that for you. But hey, thanks for watching this far. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you in the next video.